Mom, Dad, I humbly suggest you save some money and shop Amazon for back to school. It's for my growth, meaning my body's growing at an alarming rate. And clothes you buy me this year will be very small very soon. Plus, the clothes I love today will be out of style tomorrow. But at least your wallet doesn't have to be my fashion victim if you shop low prices for school at Amazon. Hopefully this is helpful. Amazon. Spend less, smile more.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we're going to talk about how to actually make your wife think that you are not passive and unhelpful. And it's a mind melder here, but it's a real shock to the system. But it's just like getting up and doing shit will help. I mean, there's no trick here. The trick is there is no trick. You actually have to get up and do shit. And this is a time where I really do dovetail with the entirety of the manosphere's advice for guys, which is also get up and do shit. So everybody agrees, so perhaps you two will agree once you hear my podcast. But first, please do subscribe to hear all of the subscriber-only episodes, such as the most recent one on the narcissistic family, which was pretty interesting. If you struggle with self-esteem, but you had a perfect family, or your family is great, then you don't know why you would have such constant mental health issues or issues with confidence or relationship issues, then this is the podcast to listen to, the one before this one. So anyhow, let's move into this. Now, certainly this is not all men. I'm the first to say that there are many women who just sit around, and this isn't for them. Like we can have episodes that address different things. Of course, if you are a woman and you realize that you are the passive one who just kind of sits around, then you can get what you can out of this. But this is predominantly for the many people that I see in my office. Not everybody, again, but there are many people where the woman feels like she does everything around the house. And when I assess for whether or not she's like overly anxious or overly perfectionistic, yeah, there's some enabling going on, but her, obviously there's enabling going on if she's allowing a man to sit on the couch so much, but her expectations are not extraordinarily unusual. And when push comes to shove, turns out that he just really spends quite a lot of time either watching TV or on video games, and really not very much time doing anything that I can tell. And when I ask him, he says things like, I don't know, I'm tired. And sometimes he's depressed, and sometimes he's just never had a male role model that really did anything around the house. And that's no longer the generation we live in. And it's frequently that man grew up maybe seeing a dad that didn't do much around the house, but he was a sole breadwinner. But now this man may not be in that situation. And even if he is a sole breadwinner, like most guys I see are not out there doing hard back-breaking labor such that they have to come home and lay down. They're usually at an office and they're doing something that's probably, honestly, less physically demanding than the wife who's home with the small children all day. So there's not much excuse for just sitting around if she's not sitting around. So this is not, again, a situation where the woman is incredibly anxious and she's like really OCD and washing things a million times that don't need to be washed, etc., etc. But it's like when the woman is doing things that generally would be perceived by others to be normative home maintenance, but the guy's just sitting around. So like, for example, a woman that cooks and cleans up afterwards. Now, that's not right. I mean, she cooked. Like, why would she also clean up? Unless literally she did nothing else all day. But there are very few women who say that, whether you're home with kids or you're working, I mean, her day doesn't start at 6 o'clock. She's not just she just doesn't just activate in the evening and then do all of the housework and have the rest of the day to relax. So that can't be possibly fair. But yet I do hear that, not as much as I used to, but sometimes, that there are women who do like all of the cleaning. And what does the guy do? Maybe he mows the lawn, and that's only in the summer. So what's he do in the winter? We don't really know. And there are loads and loads of guys that do all the home maintenance. They're constantly doing shit. And I'm not talking to those guys, right? I'm talking to the ones who really don't do very much. And so if you don't do very much, it can seem very daunting where to start, because again, it's unlikely that you saw a template of a male who was involved. Otherwise, you would be a male who's involved in the workings of the home. So the general rule of thumb that I say is to just get up. Get up when your wife is up. Don't be sitting when she's not sitting. So unless she is up until midnight obsessively baking, or others perceive that she has an anxiety disorder and she's like totally overly perfectionistic and insane, cool, then maybe go into couples counseling and try to have somebody else point that out to her, because I'm sure you tried and it failed. But if your house, if you look around, it looks all right, but like nobody would say it's spotless, and she does kind of order out sometimes, and doesn't always not on the ball with everything, so it's kind of like a normal home, except that you don't participate in the running of it. It's not some kind of like complete like factory where things go down to the minute and she has these impossible standards for you, but rather like a normative kind of home, that you're just really not participating in. In this case, you just got to get up when she gets up and do shit. So you do shit right next to her and you kind of follow what she's doing, and she's going to be like, what are you doing? And you say, I'm helping. I've realized that haven't been helping that much. So and you won't really know what to do at first, but you're smart. You can figure it out, same as you would at work. And you will learn. So if there is a cleanup routine after dinner that you have just never participated in, well, it's not going to be too hard to learn it. And if there is a way that we do bedtime or bath time with the kids, you can learn that as well. And if there is something to do with, meal prep, you can learn that too. So the rule of thumb is until maybe, let's say, I don't know, the kids go to sleep. If she's up, you're up. If she's moving, you're moving. If you just do this for 1 week, A, you might see why she's too tired for sex all the time, and B, she may magically stop being too tired for sex because she won't need to be so tired anymore because you're doing more shit. So, and that begs the question, of course, the eternal question, as I talked about in the podcast about that book, Fair Play, does doing chores, does a man doing more chores lead to more sex? Guys always say no, because here they are, the men that do chores, say, I do so many chores and I don't get laid. Yeah, the guys who are already doing a lot of chores, they don't get laid when they do more chores. They don't. That's been the status quo. But I'll tell you something. Guys that are in these more traditional setups, these more chauvinistic setups, really, that haven't been doing jack shit, when those guys come into my office and they start to do more shit, they do end up having more sex. They do end up having a happier wife, because what it indicates is a sea change, a philosophical change in the way that they view the world, and that the wife is like, holy shit, look who's up, look who's moving, look who's participating in the household. This can be a very big difference. It's just like how men start getting laid more when they go on antidepressants. Ironically, then they can't come sometimes, to enjoy that sex. But frequently, men who go on either ADHD meds or antidepressants do end up with happier and more in the mood wives, because they're fucking alive and participating. And there's nothing that's more of a turnoff than a potato that sits on the couch and just, watches shit go on, out of the side of his eyes, and doesn't really participate in any of it. So while certainly the women in these situations ought to advocate for themselves and ought to deeply examine why they overfunction. I have my overfunctioning podcast. I have my podcast on when men don't take care of you, all that kind of thing. But this is on the other side. If you realize that anybody looking in, it would be a difficult realization, a harsh realization, that anybody looking in would be like, why is she doing everything? And maybe you got a million reasons for that. Oh, she's so anxious about stuff. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, she got, to have a break during the kids' nap time, and I don't get any breaks at my desk job. Whatever the fuck it is, that maybe you don't know, so I'll tell you. If you and your wife split up and your wife met some other guy, here's what he wouldn't do when he was trying to court her and impress her. He would not just sit on his ass while she did everything around the house. He wouldn't. That's not what you do when you want to impress somebody. So it's probably not what you did in the very beginning. In the very beginning, you were more dynamic and proactive. And I'm sure you have much, resentment under, there's a lot under the bridge now. But either way, there's no man in his right mind that would think that a guy just sitting and laying around is ever going to be a turn on to women. So it doesn't really matter if you do chores or if you do something else. That's like the funny thing. If the only thing to do is chores, yes, get up and do the chores. That will be maybe not a turn on. To some women, yes, the ones where the guys literally never helped before, they'll be like, holy shit, like, look who joined, this century. But, like, if the only thing to do is chores, then get up and do the chores. If you have some other awesome shit to do, like, that could impress her too. So, like, the guys who work like 2 jobs, like, cool. That could be good for many women. Many women would find that to be attractive, or if you want to go out and you're making some project. I just had that thing about projects, the podcast about projects. If you want to go out and build a deck, some women would like that. Some women wouldn't. I have another podcast on that. Or if you want to, like, teach, here's one that never fails. You want to teach one of the kids something, holy shit, she's gonna really like that. So it's like this. If you can figure out some other kind of dynamic, interesting thing to do that isn't just for you, so it's not like, oh man, I'm so impressed, he went out and golfed, like that's not what she's going to say. But if you can do something else to participate in your family life without cleaning up the dishes, maybe you don't have to, maybe that's a workaround. Maybe if you are going to teach your son, how to speak Spanish, then cool, do that, and she'll be really impressed. Maybe she'll even do all of the cleanup. But the thing is, you got to be doing something. You got to be doing something. You cannot be sitting there as a passive consumer of media. Or you may say, I'm an active gamer. No, that doesn't count either. Nothing involving screens counts. And if you're just sitting there looking at some sort of a screen, while your wife does everything, it's not going to work out good long-term for your relationship unless she is extremely into the idea of being like the one who does completely everything around the house, and she is something out of the 50s or out of a much more conservative culture, in which case you don't give a shit about my podcast. You would never listen to my podcast in that situation because you're too busy with her bringing you your slippers and your beer and you're living your best life. But if you are a guy whose wife has ever indicated implicitly or explicitly that she is disappointed by his lack of engagement and activity in the home, then you need to follow my advice and see where it gets you, which is just get the fuck up and see. When she's up, you get up. Just get up and do something. Follow her. Go into the room and do whatever she's doing with her. It will get you a couple of strange looks. At that point, you say, yes, I'm trying to get up more and do more stuff. And there is no woman in the world that is going to say anything about that. Like that meme that's out there, like a woman will never criticize a man in the middle of him cleaning. And some of you will be like, yeah, I'll tell you, that happened to me. But the majority of guys understand that that's true, because if they help out, then the woman is happier overall. So just let me also just discriminate between two things, because again, it usually goes to this when the man has like a retort to these sorts of things. The retort is, well, I tried. There was a time where I swept up for a week after dinner, and did all the cleanup, and I did not have sex even one more time. Like 1 week is jack shit. Probably even a month is jack shit. And look what happened. It regressed. So you were doing extremely tit for tat, which is a super big turnoff, as I discuss in the Fair Play podcast about that book. But anyway, also, the point is, the chores are not, they're necessary but not sufficient. Like, you got to be passive. Sorry, you don't got to be passive. You have to be proactive and engaged in your life. And then on top of that, yeah, you also got to be romantic and sexual, sure. But just deciding that you're going to do the chores and then still like kind of never initiating, being scared of her, and like never like wanting to do anything that she doesn't like, as I talk about and I wrote about in the post, Stop Caring So Much What Your Wife Thinks, yeah, then you're still not going to get laid. So if you want this to be a broader philosophy, it's get up and and take life by the horns, because women do gravitate more to that. It's not saying I'm the best thing since sliced bread and being arrogant, which is sometimes where these things overshoot to, as I discussed in a previous episode, but rather be active and engaged, particularly at moments when she is active and engaged. Like, if she is up cleaning the kitchen and you're sitting on your phone, how do you think she feels? How do you think she feels? She feels alone, and she feels like, why am I even married? Because this is not a team. If you just got in from doing some other awesome, wonderful activity, cool. And that awesome, wonderful activity is not like your job. Because here's another thing. Your job, you would have anyway. The majority of men would have their same exact job whether or not they had a family. And so the job is not considered a major sacrifice. I don't consider, for example, my career to be a sacrifice and something that I only have for the children. So therefore, I shouldn't have to parent them because I already am working to support them. It doesn't work like that. Your career is a you thing. You're doing it for you. You would probably have this, you would have the same career. I mean, think about it like this. If you got divorced tomorrow, would you have the same career? Yeah, you would have the same career. You might even have to work harder for the alimony and child support that you would have to pay. So you might have your career, times 2 or on steroids. So your career is not for the family per se. Your career is your career. Just like her career should be her career. Those things should be taken separately out of the equation. And then it's like, what are we both doing for our family and for each other? And that needs to be the major thing. Now, this does not mean, of course, that like if you have a job where you're, working 12 hours and that you get home, you should have zero rest. Nobody is saying that. But what I'm saying is in the situation, the much more common situation where the man does usually take a back seat to the stuff around the home, not always, then he could see how it goes if he takes more of an active role, if she looks at him with relief, because it's not all on her, if she looks at him with more respect, if she's impressed, if she is skeptical at first but then impressed. There's many ways that it could go, but what won't happen is shit won't get worse. She won't dislike you more. I mean, there's just no way. So try it. Get up when she gets up, particularly if you are the men who know when this, if I'm speaking to you, right? You are the guy on the couch. So if you're the guy on the couch, then get up and see where that takes you. All right. Hope you all got something out of this, and please do subscribe. I also have YouTube now, so I'll link you to that, and I'll talk to y'all soon.